So welcome everybody to the panel Transparency for Governance. I'm the one that is honored to be on stage with some incredible panelists. We've got Joanna Ati, we've got Jack Briggs, we've got Amar Singh and Nicholas Czerny from IOG, from Emergo, from Cardano Mina, and also from Cardano Foundation. And within the next only 28 minutes left, we are going to talk a bit about the topic of transparency and how important it is within governance, especially decentralized governance. But let's first of all start with a quick introduction, and I'd say we run from the right to the left side and start with Jack.
Yeah,
Please.
thanks you. So I'm Jack Briggs. I'm part of the bootstrapping team, getting the Cardano member-based organization, otherwise known as Intersect, off the ground. And my journey with Voltaire started really when we entered the Age of Voltaire. So that was back in November 2022 with the publication of the SIP, the first publication. I was an original contributor to that. And then it's been a sort of whirlwind year, really, since we entered the Age. We've had 50 workshops globally, getting the community to shape and direct the future of the SIP and the on-chain design. And on top of that, we've had 5 or 6 iterations to the SIP, so it's gone on a massive journey. And after that, really, well, it's still going through, in fact, but Intersect launched in July this year, and my focus really at the moment has been, on the last couple of months anyway, has been on Intersect.
Hello everyone, I'm Joanna Ati. Within Cardano, we have the local stake pool. We're very focused on bringing Cardano to the Middle East, North Africa region, as well as we helped co-found the Cardano Mina community that's been steadily growing over the past few years. For Voltaire, I've attended the 2 main workshops in Edinburgh and Colorado, and then held one for the Cardano Mina community to bridge over their perspectives into the governance framework designed for Cardano, SIP 1694. As well now I'm an interim chair on the membership and community committee in Intersect to help bootstrap that part of the MBO.
Sounds good. Hello everyone, my name is Amar. First of all, thanks for tuning in. I'm part of Emergo. I'm Director for Business Development, Ecosystem Building. I'm also working very closely with Intersect team as Voltaire lead. I've been working with Jack, bootstrapping team for a while. One of my mandates have been to make sure everybody in Emergo understands what we are doing, why we are doing when it comes to governance. Also, in that part of the world, when I say that part of the world, I'm talking about Asia, Africa, to make sure people there are aware, they're part of it all, because it's not decentralized governance if it's not by the people, for the people, run by the people. I'm also part of technical steering committee. And yeah, I've been tag teaming with folks all along, so that's me.
Yeah, it's awesome, first of all, to be on this panel with these amazing panelists. So my name is Nicholas Czerny. I'm a community manager working at the Cardano Foundation. And as a community manager, one of my main focus areas this year was the Age of Voltaire and trying to really educate the community about the whole process. So as part of the community team, I wrote a lot of different blog posts. I wrote a Voltaire report where it's really breaking down all of these complex discussions and really trying to, educate everyone around these very, very difficult, maybe not so difficult conversations. And yeah, I was also lucky to join a lot of the community workshops that were part of this whole initiative from IOG, Emergo, and the Cardano Foundation. And yeah, it was just great. And then what I was also really proud of this year was in the beginning, like Jack mentioned, when the whole CIP was announced and was published, we also had to create a space for discussion. So we established a dedicated governance section in the Cardano forum in very close collaboration with the community. So here a special shout out to Felix Weber and the Swarm group. And yeah, that's about me.
Cool, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm, by the way, Sebastian Bode, the Director of Engineering at Cardano Foundation. That's a pretty ordinary job, I'd say. I'm just a line manager. And but this leads me to the first question, which is actually why the heck do we need a decentralized governance for the Cardano space? Because oftentimes in my job, I just have the role of not deciding which kind of direction we go on the technical side. That's done by my team, fortunately. But I only have very limited talent in my team, so I don't have like resources over and over that I can fulfill and all the requirements and build everything that we want to build out there. So that's actually then in the end my call. I have to decide what those guys are spending their precious time for, their precious talent for, and this kind of decision making is done in a pretty centralized way. And I'd argue in a hierarchical organization that's a super efficient way of doing those things. So why do we now have the idea that after running the Cardano blockchain with a quite centralized governance model for more than 2,000 days without an interruption, why do we want to change now to a decentralized governance model? And I'd like to hand over to Nico, maybe to give us your perspective as a community manager, why it's important.
Yeah, so I think decentralized governance really needs everyone from the community to actually not just have a voice, because we already have a voice. We can use social media, we can use the Cardano forum, but we also, as the Cardano community, really need to be the ones making the decisions and really trying to govern the whole system. Because that was one of the promises that led many of us to Cardano, right? This last missing piece of the puzzle, which is Voltaire. That was promised, and I think when we get there and when we have decentralized governance, it's not just going to be good for the average ADA holder, but it's just going to be good for the entire system, because you'll have so many different stakeholders involved, and they're just going to make together better decisions. So that's why we need it from a community perspective. And then, of course, right, innovation is happening. I mean, it's not slowing down. I mean, it's just getting faster. And Cardano is one of the blockchains that can adapt. And this decentralized governance, when we get there, I think Cardano will be even better equipped to deal with the challenges ahead. And that's what I think.
Nice, thank you very much. Amar, from an enterprise adoption perspective, I also think it might be challenging for companies that want to build on Cardano or that want to work with Cardano, that we have a decentralized governance, because then there's not that one party that they can address all their wishes or whatever to. So how do you see that topic when it comes to this aspect?
Interesting. So from enterprise point of view, right? Let me take a step back. What is governance? Why do we need it, right? So we're not talking about anarchy. We're talking about set of rules, right? When we talk about governance, who decides the set of rules? Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that in enterprise there will be anarchy, it will be disorganized. Just that employees get to say that who decides the set of rules. In every company, we don't need only CEO to decide that. I'll take further step back. What is Cardano? From enterprise point of view, it's a tech stack, technology stack, right? Now, when you see technology stack around the world, who creates it? Where does it come from? For the sake of simplicity, I'll see there's a monopoly or duopoly or oligopoly in enterprises like Microsoft, Google, Apple, and rest of the entire industry has to follow. So when we're talking about governance, we're talking about a tech stack where everybody and every enterprise can have a say that I don't want to use this operating system in this manner. And we're talking about Cardano, not 1 or 2 years down the line. We're talking about 10, 20, 30 years down the line, right? There has to be a method where these enterprises have a way of tweaking that operating system or tech stack in their own accordance, because what works in Singapore might not work in Switzerland. What works in Switzerland might not work in Laos. What works in Laos might not work in some other part of the world, right? So the idea here is giving power back to enterprises so that they can tweak it, they can decide it. That doesn't mean that there'll be anarchy. They can still choose people, they can still choose set of rules, but it's just giving them flexibility and option so that they can do that. That's that. Yeah.
Cool, thank you very much. Jack?
Yeah, and I just sort of picking up on both of your points about infrastructure, and I sort of look at decentralized governance for Cardano in sort of two ways. And we could define infrastructure in that way. So firstly, we've got the code, right? We've got the software that is Cardano. And we've seen the design spec of the on-chain decision-making in SIP 1694. That's being rolled out as we speak. I mean, it's being tested now. I think a lot of people in the room here are looking at SanchoNet, which is the testing ground for the technical features of the SIP, and that's in full swing. And then the other sort of layer is the of infrastructure, I think, is institutions. And I think Amar is touching on a point where how do enterprises, and how does, not just enterprises, I mean, how does everyone in the Cardano community develop and enhance this global financial and social infrastructure layer as a whole, right? How do we do that? And I think we've got on-chain decision-making, which is vitally important. And then we have the institutions like Intersect that can bring people together to shape the future standards. What vision do we want in the next 5 years? What tech stack do we want? Do we want quantum resistance? Who builds the quantum resistance? And in fact, that leads me to my second point, really, third point, which is we can have that conversation, and then we agree on what tech stack that Cardano has in the next 5, 10 years, 20 years, but who's building that work? And that's where Intersect is also orchestrating, facilitating, and coordinating the distributed development of Cardano. So that's where I see the two layers. And when you couple that, when you couple institutions like Intersect, and other institutions, when you couple that with on-chain governance, we're in a world that's uncharted. We're in a pioneering space where Cardano can lead the front. There is no other chain doing this work like we are with Voltaire as a whole program. So yeah.
Nice, thank you very much. Adding on this, what you all said, I guess there's one aspect that we didn't speak about yet, and it's the transparency part. So when you're doing governance at all, or decentralized governance, transparency seems to be an important thing. You see it not only in the blockchain space, but of course also on political, government level and whatsoever. So Joanna, what's your take on transparency and all that?
Yeah, I think it's very important for us to remember that when we're talking about these technologies and these advancements, the adoption rate and the readiness across the world is very different. And the most we can do from an inclusive perspective is to be as transparent as possible with the things that we're doing. And thanks to the blockchain, we can actually do that in a way that we've never been able to do that before. And that way, when you're able to bring in more perspective and people early on in the conversation, then you're able to almost embed adaptability early by having people bring in their perspectives, their cultural norms, their mindsets that are different all across the world. So it's important to be as transparent and open as possible. And something that you touched on very well is a lot of parts of the world are very dependent on software and technology that's developed in different parts of the world. But if we're trying to build global systems and global operating systems, we need to be able to embed a lot of the things that work in those parts of the world, and we could do that by being as transparent as possible with the decision making and who gets involved early and how these decisions are made.
Cool, thank you very much. When it comes to this, I think we also need good tools that are accessible. How does it look like in the Voltaire working field right now with those tools? What's currently done? Where do you look into on-chain governance, education maybe even? So maybe Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to SanchoNet, the DevNet, where basically you can already try out some of these governance features that are described in CIP 1694, there are a lot of different tools around. So there is a specific Sancho Explorer that is operated by a community member. He just set that up because he had the time and the resources. So you can really see basically what do the delegated representatives do, what governance actions are available. And tools like that are really necessary, right? Because if we have the blockchain, and I mean, we can say, yeah, it's just there, the data is in the blockchain, just look for it. Not everyone has the skill set to do that, right? You need these explorers, you need educational material, and for SanchoNet and the next phase of Cardano's governance model and basically the Age of Voltaire when it's finished, it will require a lot of tools. And I also know that at Intersect and IOG, they're working on something, so maybe Jack, you know more about that.
You're spot on. I think SanchoNet is one of the first tools really in that testing environment that people are engaging with. And then you touched on a really interesting point about accessibility. So at the moment, SanchoNet is only accessible by CLI, right? And so that limits participation immediately. And so when we think about transparency, we think about ease of access to see what governance actions on the testnet are going through and how many DREPs do we have. It's quite hard right now. My colleagues are talking about GovTool later today, I believe. And GovTool is a friendly user interface that's going to sit on top of SanchoNet. So finally, we're going to be able to have general ADA holders just jump in and participate in SanchoNet with a friendly user interface, and they can just register DREPs, they can find governance actions, and they can do all of that stuff. Testing out SanchoNet and just improving participation and getting people ready for on-chain governance. On-chain governance is going to be real next year for Cardano, which is super exciting. That's what I'm looking forward to next year. I mean, I can't wait. But there's lots more to do, of course. But that's one tool. And sorry, there's more tools, obviously. That's great. But what about a DREP Explorer? What about a campaign platform? How do DREPs, delegated representatives, by the way, how do they showcase their profile, their contributions, their experience, their skill set, where their voting inclinations may lie? How do we surface that up? How do we have the Constitutional Committee surface their rationale for why a governance action was constitutional or not constitutional? Loads of different tools, and this stuff came out of the workshops we had last year. Community feeding back on, we need this, we need this, we need this. So Intersect has a lot of grants going out at the moment. If you're a member of Intersect, you can apply for grants today, and if you're not a member, you can come and see me afterwards at the booth. And we can talk about that, a little plug, sorry. But there's 2 more categories coming, and Nico, you mentioned education. Education is like an ongoing thing. We're always going to need education in governance. Participation is incredibly important, and to participate effectively, you need to be informed. And so this is how, it's one sort of way of enabling and propelling the community to build the tools that help others, right? It's not just up to a bunch of us here on the stage, it's about everyone in this room building the tools. But we have to enable that as well, so yeah.
Great points, thanks. So now let's consider now we have the tools to onboard the people, we have the education to tell them how to use those tools, but how do we keep them engaged? How do we make this sustainable? Maybe Joanna.
Yeah, I think something that's very interesting that we're trying to establish with the membership and community committee at Intersect is exactly that. I think a big problem with governance, and Nico talks a lot about this, is it doesn't end. It's an ongoing process. So how do we keep people engaged? How do we keep them motivated? How do we keep the conversation going? And there's a lot of interesting conversations around different grant programs, different ways people can be involved, different focus groups, all these different ways that community members can always feel like they're contributing to the growth and the governance of Cardano.
Cool, thanks. Amar, any thoughts on this?
Lots of thoughts.
Please share them.
So as always, I like to take a broader picture. I'll take a step back again. Tools we have that are being built, Jack mentioned, Nicolas mentioned, but why do we need tooling in the first place? What is tooling, right? We can build the best technology, best governance frameworks out there, but if there's no usability, no adoption, what's the point, right? The tool is nothing but a bridge to give accessibility and adoption to general masses so that they feel they're part of it. Who's building the tool? Initially, anybody and everybody can raise their hands. They can propose, this is a gap. I want a grant. Can I go and build this? Yes. This is true implementation or function of decentralized governance, even in the building blocks of it all, if you see it at that level, right? So tooling that way is very, very, very important, but I'll also talk a little bit about standards, about translations. So tooling is one aspect, but there will be standards that will be found, processes which will be found, which can be used to prepare those toolings, those governance aspects and what have you. Remember, this is for next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, not for next 2 years. So this is in perpetuity, will keep on evolving, and this is a minimum viable aspect of it, yeah? That's that.
Got it, thanks. Anything in particular exciting or something that you're in particular excited about that's coming within the next month or weeks, or let's say 2024? So what challenges do you see, what's coming?
Yeah, if I can take that, I mean, the most exciting thing that I'm really looking forward to is actually when decentralized governance is available on Cardano, right? When the hard fork happens and basically the community is the one making the decisions. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. And if we really come back to the whole transparency discussion, right? It's not just enough, as Amar said, to have the tools, but really that the users and the community who are leveraging these tools also understand, hey, it's not just enough if I look up something in an Explorer and verify it. because there could still be something wrong with it, right? It should be really, they should be aware, they should be knowledgeable, as you mentioned, Jack, as well. So, yeah, I'm also really looking forward to educating more people and making more people excited about governance.
Yeah, just to follow up from that, I think there's lots of people think that governance isn't sexy, right? And maybe it isn't. I mean, I love it, so I'm in the best job in the world. But when we look at the Cardano's community's response to the SIP, it is the most contributed and engaged SIP in the entire history of the Cardano improvement process. And why do we think that is, right? So why do we think that's so important? Well, obviously, I mean, to me, it's obvious, right? People that want to make sure that Cardano is fit for purpose and future-proof. And future-proof is, like you said, this in perpetuity thing, right? It's not something that we ever achieve. We constantly work to what tech stack features do we need in Cardano, and how do we distribute that innovation? Because it's not up to just a handful of entities to decide that innovation. It's up to everybody here. And that's what I'm most excited about, because I think on-chain governance is going to propel Cardano like exponentially beyond any other chain. And I truly believe that. I think we're doing something pioneering that's never been done before. So yeah, I'm not worried about participation, actually, because the demonstration that we've seen throughout the whole of this year already tells me the opposite.
Makes sense. I'll continue on that part, right? And I want this to sink in, right? None of this has ever been done before. So instead of sitting back and saying somebody else will do it, we'll copy the model, we are taking a crack at it. I know Intersect team has been doing a tremendous job behind the scenes. People don't see it, but they have been sweating it out and doing whatever needs to be done. So the highlight for me is I'm excited to see it roll out. Of course, it'll be in phases, SanchoNet, and so on and so forth, and then the hard fork. So that's the exciting part. Challenging part, same thing. None of this has ever been done before. And that's why I keep on repeating, it's a minimum viable first rollout. We can either sit back and say, okay, let's wait and watch, or we roll up our sleeves and take a crack at it. So that's what we are doing, and I'm excited that we in Cardano are doing it. Community is doing it. Everybody's getting involved at every single level. That's what excites me. Yeah?
Cool, thanks.
I'm more excited to see localized solutions come about in different communities and how they will start interpreting how to be involved in Cardano, how they're making that governance model fit into their existing mentalities and mindsets and cultural norms. So I'm very excited to see how that will play out throughout the next year, and how we'll start to see involvement from different parts of the world, and how they could bypass their own restrictions like access to ADA or things that we don't think about when we're very deep in the technology. But yeah, overall, it's a very exciting time.
Cool, thanks. One question that comes to my mind, because I'm an IT guy. We roll it out, we failed probably. Can we roll it back, or are there any measures that can be taken to correct the course that we took with this governance system that we designed?
Yeah, I mean, you correct it through the governance system.
Okay.
I mean, as simple as that, right? If you don't like how it's done, you put a proposal in to change it, and people vote on it. And that's the process. And we're going to do that continuously, and we probably will continuously amend, update, tweak, improve, whatever, and for 100 years. And that's definitely the aim. And I think the system and as Amar says, this minimum viable on-chain governance, I think it achieves that because we've set, for those that have read the SIP, and the SIP is like one big document, so it's not easy to digest, and there's lots of educational material out there, as Nico has been doing some good work on as well. There's so much opportunity to amend the system that I'm not worried about having to roll back anything. We roll forward. We just roll forward with another iteration.
Yeah, and really one of the most important things about the CIP and the way it's proposed, right, this minimal viable governance, is that things can change and it's updatable. You can change the different parameters. Basically, you can change anything that you want. And that's like one of the core strengths. And then as you said, Joanna, right, it's so important to get as many people involved in the discussion around governance as we can. I mean, not just in the Western world, but everywhere on this planet. And that's really something I think we did really good this year already, but of course we can always step it up a bit more.
Yeah, and actually Joanna made an excellent point about that we are a global community. I think there's over like 100 different languages spoken in Cardano. This global community has diverse needs as a result of that. And this is a global infrastructure layer as well. So how do we make sure we service that? English is the primary language you speak today. Okay, that's fine. But there are multiple other languages. How do we localize content? How do we make it relevant for the communities that it serves? And that talks to Amar's point about diverse needs in Laos and diverse needs in Singapore or wherever. But so I'm super excited because of all of that. Right? I think it's a huge challenge, but it's also like, wow, look at the road ahead.
All right. Unfortunately, our time is already over, so I see the clock ticking down. I'd like to thank you very much for your contributions and also for the audience listening in. I think it's one of the most exciting things that is currently ongoing in the Cardano space. And I'm pretty confident that we will succeed with such talented people like you are, and of course together with the Cardano community. There's almost no chance we can fail. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.